G'day, Professor Joseph Drew. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about something that's absolutely essential, getting our rate increases right. Whether you're in New South Wales or Victoria, where you have a special rate variation process, or in any state of Australia where you have to set a rate every year, it's essential that you get it right, that you have good information to make good decisions. So this is all about mitigating risk, to making sure that your community is not exposed to risk. Now, a lot of what I'm going to talk about is particularly relevant to special variations in New South Wales and Victoria, but similar concepts pervade every local government jurisdiction. So when we don't get good information, we don't make good decisions and really bad outcomes before our community. So some examples of some really bad outcomes: aborted SRV, special rate variations. That happens more than what you expect. Quite a few councils have started a special variation and pulled out partway through. Now, that's the worst case scenario, because you've alerted the community to the fact that there's a problem, then you've pulled out and said we're not dealing with the problem. So that's sending really mixed signals to your community, but also to regulators. Rejected special rate variations. Absolutely terrifying. When you go for your special rate variation and IPART or ESC in Victoria reject your application. So you've gone through the work of the community, you've gone through the cost and the time, you've stirred up a certain amount of angst, and then it's rejected. So you've done the work, you've invested, and yet you don't get the money that you need. Now that's because your evidence to build a case for a special variation wasn't sufficient. Your evidence just wasn't up to scratch. Insufficient SRVs. That happens a lot. Both of the regulators, they see their job is like a guard dog to protect the community, to make sure that local government's not asking for more money than they need. And they will not hesitate, and probably nor should they, to reduce your special variation if they think you don't absolutely need all that money. So once again, the important thing here is have good, robust, independent evidence from experts, so that IPART and the ESC are in no doubt about what you actually need. And when rate variations aren't calculated correctly, it puts your community at risk. You can ask for too high of a rate increase. That's a risk. Or you can ask for money and it's not actually sufficient to make you financially sustainable. And that's been happening a lot lately. Councils have been going for special rate variations, and then 2 or 3 years down the track, they front up back to their community in IPART and say they want more money. Well, if you're in that situation, it's because you didn't get good evidence to start off with. Special variations is something that we don't want to do more than once a decade. That's why it's important to invest in good, reliable evidence so you can make good decisions and ask for enough money to get you through that decade. So all these problems really come back to not getting good evidence. So it's just so important that you get the job done properly with sophisticated tools. Now, here's an example of why you need some sophisticated tools. I did this work for a council recently. These are box and whisker plots. So each one of these refers to 1 year. So this is the quartile 3, 25% of councils are above that position. This is quartile 1, 25% of councils are below that position. This is the average, add up all the numbers, divide by number of numbers, that's the X. And here is the median. If you put all the numbers in ascending order, that is the middle position. And this graph looks at their average rate. And the council's result is way up here. So then that top quartile, that top 25%. Now looking at this, you would think to yourself, hold up, we can't put up the rates. These guys are already paying well above average. But things are not ever as simple as they seem. When you start digging into things, you realize, and when you're a mathematician like me, you realize that averages can be extremely misleading. Like I tell you people, stick one arm in a freezer and stick one arm in an oven. On average, you're just fine. So what are you screaming about? Averages are very misleading, and they can be easily skewed by very high data points, unusual data points, very large data points or very small data points. And when we looked at the land values for this community, it became very obvious very quickly what was going on. You see these dots here? They're what we call extreme outliers. So to read this graph, you've got some farm assessment categories that are over $20 million in value. Obviously, they have very high rates. That drags this average way higher. That's called skewing in mathematical terms. But it's not just because of the outliers that this has been skewed. Look at the business rate and look at the residential rate. Minuscule compared to the farm rates. And on an overall rates basis, that has skewed it upwards also. So we need sophisticated tools, and that's when things like econometrics come in. That's the super duper complex maths that econometricians do for a living. This is my stock and trade, and we can work out precisely what the rate capacity is for your community by using the specific variables relevant to your community for various types of income, various types of welfare, various types of unincorporated business income. So there's no need to guess. There's no need to use averages which we know are misleading. We can do this precisely. So that's why you've got to get someone that has the sophisticated tools to do the job. So that's why you need to get real, proper, bona fide experts in. Unfortunately, local government is plagued by self-professed experts, and often they just don't have the tools to do the job. It's like going and trying to do some electrical work without a pair of pliers. It's just not going to end well. So when I do jobs, and I'm not suggesting by any stretch of the imagination that I'm the only one that can do this work, but I get together with a group of 3 or 4 colleagues. I have a professor that's an expert in communication strategies. I have another professor who's also an expert in finance, and particularly grant finance. I have another professor who is an expert, world expert in the measurement of efficiency, and then myself as an overall financial sustainability expert. That's the sort of expertise you need to be able to be sure that you're doing the right thing by your community, that you have the right tools engaged so that we get the best information so that we can make good decisions. The work takes many months to do. This is not just a few dodgy ratios like most of the consulting work I see done on special rate variations, a dozen dodgy ratios and a little bit of commentary. This is looking at 60, 70 metrics, applying economic theory, interrogating long-term financial plans, looking at how theory can be applied to improve your efficiency, looking at all your options, including structural options and other revenue source options and other expenditure options. This is really complex, thorough work, and that takes time. That takes many months to do. And of course there is a cost involved in it, and you can get slightly cheaper, although often it's dearer. But the question is, are you getting the quality? Are you getting the assurance? Is your community going to be financially sustainable at the end of this? Is your community going to be charged the right rate of tax? Is IPART going to say that you fully demonstrated the criteria that you must demonstrate? So look at this as an investment. It's an investment into your community. As I often say, your community deserves the best. They think they deserve the best, and I think they deserve the best also. So this isn't a community education program. It's an investment that will pay dividends for many years to come for everyone. At the end of the day, we want to walk away with a 10-year plan and know that the council is safe and in good condition to do what it needs to do to help the people in the community prosper. I hope this video has really outlined for you why it's so important to get experts, why it's important to have the right tools, and why it's important to do this job properly. It's something you only want to do once every decade or more. So do the job properly, get it done right the first time, and not have those horror stories turn up and plague your community in the future. Thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.